Innovation and quality should not be dictated by how much or how little you have. Because mountains, trees and rocks are not coin-operated. It's about the sport and exceeding your own limits. The people you meet and experiences you share. It's putting one foot in front of the other.
This is Stony Point. To the countless people who drive by every day, it probably doesn't look like much. Dirty, gritty, urban. This small state park is located just 15 miles from the Hollywood sign and oftentimes gets a bad rap for its graffiti and broken glass. But to those who climb here, it represents so much more. For over 80 years, Stony has served as a focal point where countless friendships have been made and a breeding ground where many of America's greatest climbers got their start. Today, that tradition is thriving. On any given day, a cross-section of veterans and noobs alike get together to take part in the same addiction, rock climbing. At first glance, you might not be overly impressed, and you've probably never heard of most of the guys here. But this motley crew represents one of the greatest aspects of climbing at Stony. A community with centuries of combined climbing experience and an uncommon willingness to share it with others.
That's what you gotta do right there.
Come on. Oh, dude, that's so hard.
Take Guy Kesey, for example, the unofficial ambassador of the point. He's been active in the climbing scene for 30 years and is always the first to welcome new climbers into the fold.
I've been climbing here at Stoney Point since 1974, Valentine's Day. We rappelled off the front and learned how to belay, and it was kind of fun, and I got hooked. Been coming out here ever since. I've seen like whole successive waves of people come through here. And then there's some people who they stick with it. I guess we're just, not creative enough to go do anything else, and we just sort of get stuck in this rut and keep hanging out the rocks. My wife still can't figure it out, she just can't. You go there every day. Yeah, Yeah, pretty much. Why not, you know?
While Guy likes to welcome new climbers with a smile and a story, Jan McCollum prefers a more traditional approach. At age 60, Jan is still one of the strongest climbers at the point, and he likes nothing more than demonstrating this to the new generation.
I've been climbing here at Stony Point for about 35 or 36 years. I came to Stony Point to learn to rappel, and we got out here, we're in our hiking boots, and there were people bouldering, and we started bouldering, and somebody said, well, if you got real climbing shoes, you could probably actually be good at this. So we did. Rebirth, which is nice to see. There's lots of young people out here climbing. There's people bouldering hard again. It's great. I don't think that I'm really the mentoring type. I'm probably a little too competitive for that. I enjoy shit talking too much for that, probably. Right foot up to where your hands are. Okay. Once you got the two hands, sit over on it. That's good. Good. Right hand. Nice. Right foot on. All the way up. Sit on it. There you go. Nice. Yeah. Oh shit. But I got it. Damn. You gotta chalk it in the middle. You gotta chalk up. Oh shit. You gotta chalk with the right hand. I literally.
Along with Guy and Jan, a whole host of characters, both young and old, frequent Stony Point all year round. Though climbing rocks remains the #1 activity here, socializing comes a close second. And while there certainly exist different cliques and crews, the vibe at the point is almost always encouraging and positive.
Match hands there, kind of work your feet up, bump right hand all the way out.
Now just stand all the way up and stay on the Oh, nice.
Some groups boulder after work during the week, while others prefer Sunday morning top rope sessions. Whatever their preference, those who climb here are continuing a tradition that dates back over 80 years. As the author of Urban Rock, Stoney's latest guidebook, Chris Owen has a special appreciation for the park's rich history.
Stony Point was one of the first areas to be developed from a bouldering perspective. I mean, just by necessity, by the fact that, hey, there's these boulders here and we're going to climb them. This is a place where it's been a training ground for a lot of people through the years. I mean, including some very, very eminent climbers, you know, like Robbins and Yvon Chouinard and, you know, the Stone Masters, guys like that. It's absolutely steeped in history, it really is.
Rock climbing at Stony Point dates back to the early 1930s, when Glenn Dawson brought the Sierra Club here to teach them the latest in modern rope technique and climbing skills. Still spry at 97, Glenn used to be at the cutting edge of American climbing. At age 19, he was an integral part of the team that made the first ascent of the east face of Mount Whitney, which at 5'7" on a scale of difficulty was the hardest climb in the States at the time.
One of my most pleasant experiences was climbing, jumping, and rappelling at Stony Point in the San Fernando Valley. It was a beautiful location. The rock climbing section had training for use of the rope using the cliffs out there for climbing and for rappelling. And people like Chuck Wills and others went on to climb in many places.
Since Glenn's era in the 30s, Stony Point has produced world-class climbers generation after generation. During the 1950s, a crew of would-be legends like Royal Robbins, Yvon Chouinard, and Bob Camps cut their teeth at the point before going on to the biggest walls in the world.
My earliest memories of Stony Point were discovering it while we were hopping freight trains. We looked up and we saw all these rocks and we thought, well, let's explore that. We didn't have any climbing gyms in those days, so we didn't have that as an alternative, and Stony was the place. It was where it was happening, and you could get there just like that.
In the 50s and 60s, I think basically the same thing was going on that's going on now. They'd all meet out here, they'd show each other their problems, they'd work on eliminates, they would just hang out and create this community, and from there they would head off and together or separately and, you know, change the world.
Before we went to Talkeets and the big mountains of the Sierra Nevada, for example, or Yosemite, we would have our apprenticeship at Stony Point. The idea was to learn to climb well and to protect your partner with the rope safely. So I would go to Stony and develop my strength and abilities and in ways that I never knew that I could do. And I never would have done it if I hadn't discovered climbing.
Along with Robbins, Yvon Chouinard was considered one of the strongest climbers at the point during this time.
Chouinard, Robbins, I mean, you know, they were like our heroes. You know, the Chouinard's hole over there, and right there, picture Royal Robbins climbing that thing with a clothesline tied around him. We stood right there and go, yeah, this is where, you know, he climbed at.
While Chouinard and Robbins went on to pioneer big wall routes all over the world that would make them legends, other Stony Point locals were happy to keep the home fires burning, especially Bob Camps. Camps is known nationally for his daring first ascent of the Diamond and for pushing free climbing to new limits by putting up routes at the previously unheard of grade of 511. A free climbing master, Camps was a permanent fixture at the point for over 50 years.
People like Bob Camps went on to do the first ascent of the Diamond, which was so hair-raising at the time that the Colorado Park Service had banned climb attempts on it, and it took people of their caliber to come and convince the Park Service to change their policy to allow them to go and climb those routes.
At the time, there was no 510, there was no 511, and Bob was freeing these aid routes back in the late 60s. With hiking boots on, no trick micro nuts and cams and bitchin' shit, funky 50-meter ropes. He was the Huber and the Caldwell and the Eugene, all these guys that are freeing the Potter. He was that of his day.
My earliest days climbing here, I remember seeing this older man with cut-off jeans and the sun-beaten leather skin and wrinkles, the white-gray hair. The warmest smile, and as I got older, I realized the history from, who he was, and realized, wow, there's someone special right, under my feet.
Guys like Camps were so smooth and he could pull in the smallest hold, and you look at his hands and they were like these leather mitts. It didn't even look like a human hand. It was just this prehensile appendage for clasping rock. It's amazing.
Bob Camps was probably the nicest person I've ever met. The most helpful person. Didn't matter if you climbed hard or could hardly climb, Bob Camps would climb with you.
I mean, just Bob Camps, just watching him climb when he was in his 50s and his 60s, and it was stunning.
He was a rock master. He had mastered those skills and had kept that mastery at a high level well into his 60s.
Ever since I started climbing here, Bob has been a target for me. When Bob died, I was almost lost. Except that I still have a target for another 20 years.
By the 1970s, the golden age of rock climbing was coming to an end, and a new era was taking over. A free climbing revolution was underway, and Stony Point saw many of its greatest climbs established.
Back in the 70s, you were not even considered really in a legitimate sport by anybody. You were considered really like it was some sort of a circus stunt that you were doing.
I started climbing here in '73, I think. It was a lot like it is today. A group of friends came out, picked on each other, and tried to do problems the other person couldn't do. And, we just drink more now.
By the time a teenage John Bachar showed up in the 70s, bouldering and Stony Point had been around for almost half a century. On his way to becoming the Michael Jordan of his generation, Bachar spent his formative years out at the point.
John Bachar started here, and as did a number of the Stone Masters. And obviously John was an incredibly brilliant climber, and he was one of the first climbers to develop that athletic approach to climbing, that fitness approach to climbing.
I remember when John Bachar started climbing, he showed up out here, pretty strong blonde dude with a lot of drive. So he was kind of competitive about his climbing, which was kind of opposite of what most people were at the time, because climbers weren't supposed to be competitive, even though it was always boiling right below the surface, the competitiveness of it all. John was really driven, and he came out here every day, get here like 3, 4 in the afternoon, and then boulder every day until the end of the day.
When I started climbing, Bachar was already here. He was in high school. He was already better than everyone else. He was slow, precise, perfect, and really, really good.
I'd always hear stories of Bachar, how he'd like crank here, and then you'd see him like up in his car, like, with dumbbells, like doing curls and like, still like training, He was just a machine.
He opened up a lot of stuff. He did new problems. He was really a driven boulderer, really pushed the standards.
Ummagumma is a V7, and John Bachar put that problem up, and it's an obvious problem. It's 2 pockets, one after the other, and then some freaky exit. And it's obviously a Bachar statement, and it's still a Bachar statement even now, which is actually quite a testament to his capabilities, considering it was put up back in the 70s. And it's just sitting there, isn't it? Just sitting there saying, if you can, climb me, I'm John Bachar, right?
Not long after moving away, Bachar would begin to establish himself as one of the greatest climbers of all time, with countless cutting-edge free solos and first ascents up to 513. During the 70s and 80s, some of the biggest names in climbing would come through Stony Point. In this hilarious excerpt from a 1981 Eye on LA News segment, we can see Stone Master legends John Long and Lynn Hill showcasing their talents in the style of the day.
mountaineering. The object is not so much to conquer a peak, but to plot and master routes up huge boulders and difficult faces.
What you're looking for when you're on a face is the quickest, the easiest, and the least strenuous sequence of moves that you can do. You have to mentally choreograph the moves in advance to their execution, so consequently you can look up and say, well, I'm going to use this hold here, and I'm going to use this cross hold here, and you'll end up all entwined in your own limbs. A lot of times you're stuck. There's a lurking doubt in the back of your mind a lot of times, but if that's going to be in the forefront of your head, that's going to be right there with every move that you're doing, you had no business belonging to be up there in the first place.
Hey, this is weird. Well, bye!
But for top rock climbers, free soloing or climbing without a rope may be the ultimate thrill.
Well, it's exciting, and it also feels really good to be able to be efficient and feel your body move gracefully on the rock and flowing movement and not have to worry about the gear.
30 feet up, Lynn is perched on a ledge the size of a dime. What drives these people to risk their lives for a climb?
It's just fun. Just in the same, probably the same as sinking a 35-foot jump shot or sinking a long putt.
Reaching the summit, they experience the exultation only climbers can know.
During the 1980s, rock climbing began to evolve from a fringe activity practiced by a few to a quasi-mainstream sport with ever-increasing numbers, and Stony Point witnessed a huge influx of new talent.
Climbing definitely changed a lot starting in the mid-80s. Climbing really started to be an accepted activity and has just really mushroomed ever since.
In the 80s, there was this whole wave of new climbers, sort of what's happening right now, a wave of new climbers coming here.
Most of the regular problems that are still here today were being done back then.
Probably about 1983, 1984, we were getting bored of the usual circuit of Stony Point climbing, and we started venturing around to the north side and the summit boulders.
There were definitely a big potential for high, scary problems, and this was still the pre-pad era, and very risky stuff.
Yvon Chouinard found the Cotis Corner, and that really opened our eyes to how hard the bouldering could be back here.
With Stony Point's reputation as a local proving ground, an obvious question might be, who was the strongest? Fortunately, no one's had to ask that question for the last 30 years. Everyone already knows the answer, and it never changes.
Mike Waugh had just the most amazing hydraulic power of any climber I've ever seen, more than Bachar, more than Dale Bard, more than Ron Kauk. Just the one arm, grab the crappiest hold and pull it to his chin with no feet. Amazing.
Him and Jan, they really went up through the climbing grades fast. Nailed all the problems, all the standard problems out here, and then pretty soon Mike Waugh, he's doing things that nobody could touch. I mean, nobody.
Mike's the world's strongest man, pound for pound.
He's kind of the common thread that runs through all times, all the way from, I'm sure he was starting out here early 70s, maybe even before that. And he still climbs out here almost like twice a week the whole period of time, which is just crazy.
In the 80s, it started becoming more about how far off the ground you were willing to do hard problems, how far you were willing to risk falling.
Climbing high off the deck was never a problem for perennial drifter and Stonemaster legend John Yabo Yablonsky. During the 1980s, he established a slew of Stoney's most classic boulder problems.
This place really suited Yabo's style of bouldering, which was just kind of wild moves and then, dramatic finish. It kind of suited his style of, solo climbing. He was a big inspiration, even though I didn't want to, I was a little more careful than him. I had to be, didn't have his strength.
He did a number of problems at Stony Point, the most famous of which is more than likely the Rearen, which is another one of those big test piece boulder problems that people are still trying to fight their way up.
Yabo was a tortured soul. It's just too bad that he didn't, figure it out and stay with us, Always fun to hang with, always fun to climb with. And he put up new routes. I mean, a lot of the things that are attributed, like, Yabo Mantle or Yabo Rearen, those were problems he dreamed them up.
For many years, bouldering, the act of climbing difficult lines up small rocks without a rope, was largely viewed as mere practice for real climbing. But throughout the 90s, this attitude began to change. As bouldering became recognized as its own sport, Stony Point became more popular than ever.
In the 90s, right, bouldering became its own sub-sport of climbing, really a sport unto itself, a very, very pure sport. And it really has stayed pretty intense since then. It's not something that's faded out. It's got more and more difficult, and I don't know, probably the hardest climbs in the world are all boulder problems.
big wave surfer drop into a huge wave just with complete control and confidence.
Well, Jeff, probably the best climber I've ever climbed with in my life. Strongest mentally, physically, vision, could just see, fucking instantly see the line.
Of all his first ascents at Stony Point, Jeff Johnson's magnum opus is undoubtedly the Johnson problem. Over the years, Stony Point has seen many big-name climbers come and go, but perhaps none with a bigger personality than the late Michael Reardon. Notorious as one of the leading free soloists in the world, Reardon was a master in the deadly game of ropeless climbing. He was also a Stony local and an active member of the community. With a larger-than-life personality that exuded positive vibes, Reardon was one of the most encouraging climbers at the point.
Michael Reardon was a local climber, and he was a very exuberant character and very, very friendly. And he was a very good climber.
Some people have a certain aura about them. They bring like the madness, they bring the party when they walk up. And it's funny because Mike could do that, just that like boiled up from inside of him, you know. And it would only take a few minutes for that guy to crack the ice. Man, he'd have you telling stories or just swapping big lies or anything. Reardon really was someone who was a charismatic person and was really fun to hang with.
I shot some pictures of him on the prow, and I got to see him solo something that actually I think the prow is actually quite a gnarly solo, because the prow is quite a slippery climb in one spot. And you know, he came up the edge and came around the corner and maybe came back again and took another look at it and came back, and he worked his way through it, never looking, you know, horrified or anything like that, just very carefully worked his way up, and it was very impressive to watch.
In 2007, while on a climbing trip to Ireland, Michael Reardon was tragically swept out to sea by a rogue wave and never seen again. His loss was mourned throughout the whole climbing world, but perhaps nowhere more so than his home crag, Stony Point. For the last 80 years, Stony Point has been a place where many people get their first taste of climbing, and that tradition continues today as a new generation filters through the point for the very first time.
I've been climbing at Stony Point for about 1.5 years. We all started together, so.
I started 1.5 years ago and haven't been able to stop since, so. I like it.
Back in the day, Dimitri, when we used to boulder with no pads and no spawning. No pads, no spawning.
It's an overlapping thing. The generations are overlapping, you know? It's not one generation here, and then the young guys come in, and all of a sudden it's like, you're retired, here's the new guys. It's overlapping, it's all together. They like flow with each other, so you get these guys and there's like a chain of respect almost, like you know this guy knows more than you listen to him.
Explode, come on! Twice your guys' age and you got nothing. And the girls say that all the young boys have stamina and power. Okay, down.
More and more, I just am really psyched for what climbing is to so many people, you know, and they do see it as a thing of respecting the earth and celebrating life.
And I still think that deep down inside it's the physicalness of it, of hanging on hard and really trying to do something. And once you become wrapped up in really wanting to do a problem, you know, when you're sitting around your house thinking about it, you know, it can get under your skin. And after like a couple months, you know, and you come and you succeed on it, you see that you're getting better. I think it gets you hooked on the sport, and it maybe shows you something about yourself that you like, to have that feeling go on and on and on. You know, like down there, those guys are having fun, you know, and they've probably only been climbing like this is it, you know, their first day, and they're getting adrenaline going, you know. That's what I like about it.
While Guy represents how the majority of his generation feels about the next, Jan represents a slightly crustier opinion.
I think a lot of the difference between my generation and the current generation that's starting to climb is the current generation just doesn't have the balls that we had. You're just not willing to put yourself out there in risk. You're willing to pull hard. You're probably not willing to train as hard either. We trained really hard.
But I do see an obsession with numbers and grades instead of just enjoying the experience of being out here in nature, because that's what climbing's all about, and having good times with your friends.
While the majority of Stony Point's worthy climbs have already been established, occasionally a new top rope or boulder problem is claimed. But due to Stoney's long history of capable climbers, it's almost impossible to know for sure if what you've done is a first. Local young gun Daniel Valkeely is constantly on the lookout for new lines. Recently, he established what he thought might be Stoney's newest boulder problem.
Okay, so this power glide, right? I mean, okay. This power glide, I mean, one of the most classic problems here at Stony Point. I mean, everybody does it, and you can see it from a mile away, and, you know, being here all the time, I've done it so many times, and it's in such an established area, and I was just there one day with some guys, and I thought to myself, I wonder, you know, if maybe some of these holds weren't here, if there would be a problem that goes up on like some of the patina and, you know, the rock that is just naturally there, that goes straight up from the starting holds. I didn't know if it was possible or not, because I was under the impression again that it had never been done, and I was gonna call it Powerhouse, it was gonna be awesome, and I just got on it one day and it went. Which of course, I mean, after I sent it, I was told by wiser men than myself that it was in fact an old Lynn Hill problem. So, I mean, I don't know if it was, or if she exactly topped out the way I did, or if the problem was even the same, but I mean, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I can't talk to her and ask her, but assuming that she did do this before I did, I probably got the first male ascent. So one of many rare first male ascents.
Every Tuesday and Thursday, a core group of locals get together after work to talk shit, drink beer, and sometimes even climb. This tradition dates back longer than anyone can remember, and new members are always welcome.
Well, I think the Tuesday-Thursday group is fantastic. I mean, I started climbing here when I was in, I think, like 6th grade. You know, I was just a little kid, and so I met most of the old-timers, Guy Kesey, Jim Wilson, Bob Camps. I met all the regular Tuesday, Thursday guys when I was just a little kid, and they really had a huge impact on my climbing style and technique and development.
Initially, Top Rope Tuesday was something that we started like when the seasons change, like it starts in spring. And we go until it gets about too hot. But every Tuesday, and I'll set up as many top ropes. I got 4 ropes, and other people bring more ropes, and we just set up the whole backside, set up a canyon, set up something that, you know, somebody hasn't done in a long time, you know, and you got to sit there and tinker with it and figure it out. Top Rope Tuesday is great.
Oh shit.
So I think it's a great place on Tuesdays and Thursdays to come, and these guys are just a wealth of knowledge and stories and experience. I don't think in Southern California you can get this kind of experience, this kind of knowledge anywhere else.
I don't know how much of a mentor. I mean, you know, I like to take people climbing. I don't mind spending the time to introduce someone to the outdoors.
Guy was really the first one to teach me the basics of anchoring and belaying, and to really teach me, you know, that climbing's a little more than bouldering.
I find that that's always the real fun part, is like when you can kind of show someone, and it's just like you introduce them to like something like the crack climbing or something, you know, and then they just take it, and you see that they have such a good time with it. That makes you feel good.
Guy was definitely the one who taught me how to not die. If it wasn't for Guy, we'd still be using computer printouts to tie our knots.
In a world of mutant strength gym climbers and double-digit boulder problems, Stony Point might not seem like much more than an antiquated choss pile on the side of the road. Yet despite its urban setting, there's something undeniably special about this place that builds strong climbers and a tight community.
This place has had such influence on so many people over time, and you know, it's always been a special and magic place, even though it kind of sometimes feels kind of urban and a little bit ghetto at times. It's still, you know, it's not hard to get away and find yourself in a peaceful, tranquil spot, and you're just amazed at how close this is to the city, yet it's so wonderful.
T.M. Herbert told me we were at the #1 boulder at Camp's Memorial. Don Loria is standing there, Mike Sherrick, Half Dome, Mark Powell, Dave Rarick, his wife. They're talking about Bob, and he looked at me, he goes, Banny, this is where it started. He points to the ground at our feet at the #1 boulder. He goes, this is where Southern California climbing started.
You know, the stories that go through this place and what was started here, it's like mythology. It's basically like modern mythology here, to me.
It's amazing when you look at the history of climbing and you see how many people actually learned all the foundations of climbing out here at Stony Point and then went onward to other places, really all over the world, to go climbing.
This place is probably the best all-around training, climbing area, you know, not just for bouldering, but you know, you want to go do bigger and better things. This place will really train you.
Fantastic place to hone your skills, plain and simple, novice to expert.
Stony Point has always been a place where someone will always come and say, hey, try this, you know, hey, try that. People will always share. There's always someone will, you know, help you with something.
The people who rock climb are like some of the chillest people I know, you know? It's easy to become friends with them because you already have something in common to like bring you together.
What makes Stony like home and in my heart to me is like it's where I started climbing, and you know, and on top of that I've always like read the history books of climbing areas, and Stony Point has the who's who of climbers.
Stony Point seemed like a dusty pile of sandstone rocks to me then. But now it's become kind of a love affair, and I'd hate to leave the place because it's just got so much rich history, and I've been on so many climbs here over the years that it is my backyard of climbing.
I think as long as Stony Point's here, people will be climbing here. And I think it will always be something that climbers in LA do, that they go to Stony Point, especially in the evenings, and meet other people. I don't see that role diminishing in any way for Stony Point. I think it'll be here long after we've gone, and new people will be coming here and climbing long after we've gone.
Well, what makes Stony Point special to me is the feeling and the camaraderie I get with the fellow climbers who are, you know, into the same addiction that I'm at. Stony Point, I mean, this is it. This is the place we come to. So it's sort of the center, or the rock, or the building, or whatever, that I share something with friends. And it's the camaraderie and the friendship you get, and meeting new people. And
when you go climbing with somebody, you rely on them. It's life and death at times. And so you become really, really good friends. And Stony Point's a place to cement that friendship, to share, to have all that camaraderie, and to ruthlessly pick on each other in a way that, you know, only good friends can.
That's what makes Stony Point so great. You got community, you got history, and you got hard climbing.